Hello, beautiful alchemist. Welcome to Reiki Radio. I am your host, Yolanda, and I am very excited about today's conversation because we are going to get to sit with and chat with one of the people in my life that I'm so appreciative for. She started out as a teacher of mine many years ago, and we have since become very close friends. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you may be familiar with her. Her name is Holly Hawkins. And we're going to talk about the Akashic Records, but perhaps in a way that you haven't heard of before. And the reason is because I recognize that this is becoming a more popular, more common topic, the Akashic Records. And there are lots of different points of view around it, a lot of questions, a lot of, curiosity. And so, because of knowing her for so long and working with her even over the years, I love the way that she explains not just the Akashic records themselves, but the accessibility and how it can benefit us on our paths, because she likes to focus on us having the responsibility, the accountability, the choice within our paths of awakening, and a lot of focus on why all of us having connection to our higher mind, our higher consciousness is important to our individual paths of awakening and just these overall life experiences. So we will get into all of that. If you've not met Holly before, she is an Ascension Visionary. And as I mentioned, she works with the Akashic Records, but she also teaches people, which she really loves to focus on. She teaches people how to access the Akashic Records for themselves. She also is a channel, and I'm going to ask her all about that. So if you're curious about that, we also talk about a little bit about the universal sphere. She'll tell you a bit about this, but we also talk about the galactic Akashic Records, which I won't spoil it for you. You'll just have to listen to the interview and hear more about that. So it is her absolute joy to celebrate each and every person who attends her classes, who does sessions with her. I know this personally again, and I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. But to learn more about Holly and her work, if you want to learn more about the Akashic Records, any of that, visit her website at hollyhawkins.love. The link is down in the show description, of course. She has also generously offered for all of us a free Akashic Records meditation, which you can access. The link, again, is down in the show description. There's also an upcoming class in May, but you'll learn more about that. So sit tight, and I will see you beauties on the other side. Okay, everyone, we are here with the beautiful Holly Hawkins. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, she will be very familiar to you. But if you are new to her work, you're going to be very excited to learn what it's all about. Holly, my love, thank you for making time to come today.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I love the magic of you and I together
Yes.
and how, we can end up having these really long, in-depth conversations that are so incredible and enlightening. So let's bring that magic to this.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's so much about you and your work that you know, obviously I've had the joy of being a part of for over 10 years now. I can't even think of how long ago, maybe 15 years we've known each other.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. And
But it also goes back to other lifetimes.
yes, and other lifetimes. I do want to talk a bit about your journey, but not at first. I'm so excited to talk about what you've been working on recently, mainly because I think it's so important for all of us to have some way of learning to trust how to guide ourselves forward. And one of the things you say is we have to own the journey to an awakened state. And it
Mm.
is a very personalized and it's so unique to all of us. And your work really supports people in having, this way of connecting to their inner or higher GPS. So I wanted to start with just asking you, from your own experience and what you've um, experienced with clients, why is it so important for us to be able to acknowledge or tune into our higher self or soul level guidance?
That's a great question. I think I'll answer it at a couple levels. Number one is, during this time of our awakening or our ascension, one of the major energies that's shifting is a pivot from using external guidance that and external support as our pole star, meaning historically, and we don't have to look very far, but if we look back in the longer body of history, we've had religious leaders or social leaders of all sorts that held the key.
Right.
And they would be the wisdom figure. They would be the person that we would go to and say, you tell me what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And I'm going to follow your guidance and your pathway. And I'm going to, because of my regard and respect for you, I'm going to do it your way. Okay.
Right.
Now that was really great for a long time, and it still is a current model. We're not completely eliminating it. Some people are still really growing in that, but some of us in our soul's journey, meaning the awakening of our soul's awareness in our human experience, we're recognizing that we're not necessarily fitting into those models anymore.
Right.
They don't feel right anymore. And what we're being asked to do is discover that this divine wisdom is flowing through us just as much as it's been through our spiritual leaders. But as we learn to listen to it within ourselves, we understand our personal journey, the rightness of who we are, which a lot of us aren't that comfortable with who we are, right?
Right.
Who we are, what we're here for, how we're to grow, how we're supposed to be contributing, which is another topic unto itself. But that idea that this time of awakening, it really is, in my mind, essential for us to say, what is this wisdom that's within me? It is here, and I can guide the uniqueness of me from that divinely connected place, but I'm hearing me, I'm hearing my journey. Because again, not all of us are fitting into a collective journey in terms of like everyone in this group or this organization, we all do this thing.
Right.
Now it's like, okay, I get that this is my journey. And that's part of our awakening.
It's so interesting hearing you say this. It points to something that I love about this work as a whole, right? I mean, a lot of what you're saying, it also points to that need for and the opportunity really to discover ourselves. So this
Mhm.
journey of self-discovery, because you're acknowledging that our journeys are unique and what is my way and what are my desires and my wants. And I think a lot of us come to this questioning or this phase of seeking or whatever you want to call it, because to your point, if we always had other people telling us what's best for us, there really is no connecting with ourselves or questioning that for ourselves. And so that's why it would feel off at some point, or why at some point we're like, what the hell am I doing? So it's very interesting that this also ties into getting to know ourselves, because that has to be part of that understanding of the guidance and what feels more authentic to us.
I agree. And also when we're always following those external guides, and there's some points in time where that's very valuable. Like,
Yeah.
when you're a child growing up, you are listening to your parents and being guided by them, and that's appropriate because you can't take care of yourself yet. But
Yes.
then as we grow and as we mature and as we become realized about who we are and our journey, and we're willing to listen to that, the reality is we get to take 100% responsibility for that in all the good ways, and sure, the challenging ways too. But very often we think we can't be who we want to be, that desire that's within us, because of these the lack of external validation, like, well, in that group or those people, I can't become that. We end up feeling a little victimized by external points of view. And this like shifts it so we can actually feel empowered
Right. Yeah.
that I'm making these incredible choices for myself. I'm willing to live by however it plays out, whether I'm liking it or I'm going to pivot and go, maybe I don't, but then I can go to in the direction that I want. We don't feel hemmed in by those external voices.
Right. And the beauty is, a lot of us, we may find different ways of navigating this or coming into the awareness of who we are and how we feel inspired and guided and all of these things. But part of how I met you many years ago is because I was in that phase of really wanting to understand what is my way forward? Who am I? I was really questioning and trying to discover who I was. So much was coming up. And at the time and still, you were a teacher of the Akashic Records.
Yeah.
So I want to get into the benefit of being able to have a way of accessing like something like the Akashic Records and really getting into with you the conversation around what this is even about. Because there's a lot out there and there are lots of points of view. And not to say that they're wrong, but there are lots of points of view. And from knowing you for so long, I think you have a beautiful way of helping people to understand what is the Akashic realm? How do we access this information? So, can we get into that? What drew you to the Akashic Records? And from your connection to it, could you explain what it is?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Because as you know, I'm super passionate about it as one of really effective tools to support
Mhm.
us in our awakening. Um, so, so how I got into it is I had heard about it. I've been doing esoteric and energy things really for a lot of my life. I moved professionally into this arena, not Akashic Records, but just general energy work in the professional way in 2006. And between 2006 and 2011, I had heard about the Akashic Records and it was like, oh, that's interesting. But it never penetrated. It never got me curious because I'm the type of person that when I finally get curious about something, I go for it. I want to learn about it and explore it. And how does that feel to me? And generally, then if I really love it, then it's something that I add to my practice. But again, I feel like all those times I was hearing about it, they was dropping in seeds of awareness because then it was probably in 2010 that a good friend of mine uh, said, oh, I'm studying the Akashic Records and I'm now studying to be an instructor. And I don't know what it was. It was like I was lit up. After all these years of hearing about it, I was lit up and I said, when you're done, I want you to come teach your very first class at the Healing Studio, which is where I met you when
Yes.
we were there. And it was just like it was time. It was, again, heard about it, but now it was time. And then when she did come, it was her second class, not her first, that she taught at the Healing Studio that we had at the time. It was it was so profound for me. It was a weekend course, but I felt like I was shot out of a cannon.
Yes.
So I know, not anything that we're really passionate about, we probably have threads or connections to that in other lifetimes. It's already in our soul's history. But it felt in a sense like I was picking up where I left off. I immediately wanted to start offering this to my clients who I had already been working with the energy work. I had zero hesitation about it.
Right.
And it's been pedal to the metal since then and since 2011, and it's an essential part of my life on a regular basis. As you know, I've got my trillions of Akashic Records journals that are
Journals.
already always close at hand. I'm in the records for myself, my business, and of course for clients all the time. The reason I feel no, so I look at it as a tool. I look at it as a spiritual tool, and it's a tool supporting my awakening. And what am I waking up to is the truth of who I am. So this is very esoteric. This isn't a typical way that most people talk about the Akashic Records, but it's a way of us accessing what we're all craving. And what we're all craving is I just want to know what I'm here for. I want to know why I'm here. I want to understand experiences I've had in this life. I want to understand why I tend to do things and why I'm not going in the direction that I want to go in.
Right.
And it's a way of us coming into alignment bit by bit. This isn't a quick fix. This goes back to what you said in the beginning about the journey. It allows us to come into harmony and resonance with our true nature. And so part of the healing aspect of the Akashic Records that people talk about is we have energetic patterns, and that's how I look at everything as energy, that aren't serving us anymore. And so the Akashic Records can help us release things that aren't serving us. They can help us move positively towards our dreams and our desires in a way that is realizable. And what I mean by that is we can take it from that realm of dream and desire and actually start having the action steps, the thought changes, the emotional changes that can bring us to the manifestation of that. Many people have dreams and desires that they really hope will happen, but deep down inside, they don't believe it really will because they haven't had an experience of it yet. And so that's the very esoteric answer I would give around the Akashic Records, but on a more practical level, if you will, which is a funny thing to say because it's such a highly energized field. All of us are souls having a human experience, and we know that saying over and over again, but we've had lots of experiences on this planet and off this planet in other time, space, dimensions, and realities, if you will. And they all are part of who we are. And all of those experiences are journeying us back into oneness, back into the full expression of who we are at that core essence level. But along the way, we've had experiences. So, what's said about the Akashic Record is it's every thought, word, and deed. So as we're living our experiences, whether they're boring, mundane, I'm a farmer plowing my field every single day of my life, all that's stored in the space of the Akasha, because the Akasha itself is a highly refined energetic field that just responds to the environment and holds the energy of what's happening in the environment.
Right.
And so when we get to the place in our evolution that we feel like we're ready to put our toe in the water of this, we have an opportunity to understand ourselves better. Now, classically, people think, oh, the Akashic Records is past lives, right? And that has been our understanding of it. And yes, that's true. But I also want to bring forward that that's a tiny portion of what's available in terms of us coming into this greater alignment with our truth. So yes, past lives are part of it. Ancestral history is part of it. We carry those vibrational frequencies. Our current lifetime and reframing and understanding ourselves in our current lifetime and the experiences we've had is available to work with and transform in the Akashic Records, as well as guiding us towards our future potential. So it's all there, way more than past lives. And I know this goes beyond your question, but I'm going to talk about this if I can for a moment, this idea of past lives, because so many people believe, and this idea is transforming, but it hasn't completely transformed yet. Think that if I just tell me who I was, what did I do? Where did I live? It's like they want the data of their past lives. Now, that can be cool. That can be interesting. But the foundation of the Akashic Records has the ability to transform. So when we are in the Akashic Records and a past life comes up, it's because there's still some energy of that past life active in our field now. So all the lifetimes that we've had, where I'm just going to make it up, that we were that farmer, we may not have any lingering energy from that active in this lifetime. So we don't really need to explore that lifetime. We want to explore and open up to the lifetimes where the energy of what was in the past is still impacting us now. Now, people tend to think of this in the negative, like, oh, the negative past lives are impacting me. Are there things from our past lives that are feeling hard for us now that echo back to a past life? Absolutely. But at the time that they started, they weren't difficult. They're only difficult now because we're ready to transform that energy. The energy isn't serving us now. Back then it did. Otherwise, we wouldn't have hung on to it for all the lifetimes. But also past lives isn't just the problematic ones. We've had yummy, juicy, aligned, successful, creative, abundant lives that we can source from also.
Mhm.
So I like to bring up, like, to flesh that out and really give us this bigger picture of what's possible. And just the energy of being in your Akashic Records is transformative in and of itself.
Right.
But I'll stop because you know me, I can go on.
No, I love it. And there are so many things. I think it's bringing a lot of clarity because the Akashic Records has become very popular. It's well known. At the very least, people have heard of it. But that's why I wanted to do this deep dive with you to give people more clarity, more understanding of how they could potentially benefit from understanding the Akashic Records and even accessing it. So, with what you said, um, one thing I think is great is like, yes, we can access past lives but the point or the focal point of it would be what would support us now from what
Right.
we encountered or experienced in those times, but that we can also just gain clarity around things that we're experiencing now that may not necessarily be linked to a past life. Like it's all that potential is there. And I love that you bring up the healing aspects. So I wanted to talk to you about this part of it because this is a two-sided question. On one hand, what would people ask to go if I was going in the records, would it be because, I have a pattern that I'm stuck in and I just can't understand, or I want to make a change in my life, but I just can't put my finger on what is activating or illuminating in me? What are the kinds of things that people may go into the records to discover and understand? But then also, can you talk a bit about how we can have someone read the records for us, but we can also go in there by ourselves?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. So the first part of that is the Akashic Records isn't just a mind experience or a data collecting experience. It's literally a transformative dimension. Okay. And I'll talk about this just briefly because it informs how we go in and ask. It goes, the Akash itself is a field of unconditional love. And that sounds super lofty. And most of us strive for that. We're desiring that, but we really don't have a very good, solid lived experience of it. So how does unconditional love present? It presents in kindness, compassion, understanding, generosity, grace and space, right? So when the vibration of the Akash, just by being in there, you're immersed at the level of understanding yourself at that deeper soul or spirit level. And it's all happening in the environment of this unconditional love, of the kindness, of the compassion, of the understanding. So there's never anything punitive, judgmental, critical. We do all that in our human life well enough, but all that kind of gets suspended when you're in there. So the reason I say that is because that's the filter through which everything happens, this understanding, kindness, and compassion. Now, with that being said, what do we go in and we ask questions to move energy? We don't just go in there and say, tell me what I need to know. Not a good, effective question. So what's up for you right now? That's what I say to my clients. And also when I teach people how to do this, ask what is on your mind now. It could be simple, it could be mundane. I encourage small questions, meaning if I can create meaningful change for myself today, tomorrow, this week, this month, then I know I can do that at any time.
Right.
And that means I make today happy and satisfying. I make this week the best week I can remember having in a long time. So ask about the things that are most important to you in your human life now. That could be about relationship. That could be about money. That could be about feeling happy. That could be about letting go of things from the past. It could be about resolving patterns like you talk about. So you ask about what's up for you now, because that is you right now are at the leading edge of your growth.
Right.
So ask about what is up for you, and it can be very mundane. Then if there are energetic echoes, if you will, or patterns that are still active from a past life, it'll bring it forward. If you ask about something that has to do with an ancestral pattern, it will come forward because you have a team of guides in there knowing your journey and saying, based on where they are right now, and these are the questions they're asking, let's bring them this. This is what's relevant for you now, what we're ready to know, understand, and create change with. So it's always about where you are right now. That's the most empowered thing you can do.
Right.
Okay. So the second part of your question is, yes, absolutely. You know, you can have somebody who has experience reading the records read for you. One of my big passions, as you well know, is teaching other people to do it for themselves.
Right.
And I know people feel like, oh, but I can't do that. I'm not spiritual enough. I haven't developed all my clairs enough. I haven't released enough of my past trauma. The reality is, literally everyone can. Everyone has an Akashic record. It's not something you have to believe in. It's not related to any religious philosophy or belief. It just is. Think of any person that you know that if you talked about the Akashic records, they'd think you were mad and you were out of your mind. They have an Akashic record too. They may not be curious about exploring it, but everyone and everything does. So the reality is that I feel like the best thing anyone can do is learn to read their Akashic records, because then in any given moment, you can get yourself aligned. You can get that quick answer. You can, I really believe in micro movements. Instead of, big sweeping changes, we're not vibrationally resonant with that. Like I can have my dream and desire way out there, but it's out there because I'm not vibrationally resonant with it yet. But if I make a micro movement towards it today and tomorrow and next week and next month, then I feel great. I feel empowered. I see the progress, and I'm getting myself vibrationally attuned to where my desires are calling me.
And it may not be as shocking to our system, which could be a whole nother conversation. But I love everything you say. I just want to make sure people understand. So if this is totally new to you, hopefully you get that when she says go into your Akashic records, like it's not a physical location, but this literally is we experience this higher realm of consciousness. And to your point, you don't have to be psychic or so intuitively refined with your intuitive connection in order to learn how to access these imprints of consciousness from all space, time, and dimension, everything you've ever experienced, on and on and on.
Right.
But in that, it brings up wanting to talk to you a little bit about how these shifts in perspective, because someone may say, okay, so I get some information, I find out something in the record. Can you talk a bit about how just sometimes being able to see something differently, or if we are stuck in our judgment, our criticism, our pessimistic idea or view about something, how just being able to see, know, or understand it differently, what that shift does. But can you also talk about, because you've mentioned healing
Mm-hmm.
and how just the essence, the energy of connecting into this space, the shift and change that that supports as well.
Okay, I'm going to talk about that healing part first, if I
Okay.
could.
Yes.
Um, I love that you asked that question too. It's a great question because healing to me is, yes, something goes away, something changes, something transforms. Yes, yes, yes. But it's not like always a malady. To me, our healing journey, what we're healing is anything that's a distortion, an energetic constriction, a belief, a long held experience that is keeping us from really being the expression of our true divine nature while we're here on the planet. Because remember, we've been indoctrinated to think that all the goodies, all the good stuff doesn't happen until you leave. But part of our awakening is recognizing that all those things that we think we're going to have after we transition out of here, we actually can embody that right here and right now. And we're learning to do that bit by bit. So the healing is the release of the things on all levels, energetic thoughts, emotions, experiences that are like those layers of mud or dross that we want to clear away so we get to fully shine and express ourselves. And when we're fully shining and expressing ourselves, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, we feel alive, we feel on purpose, we feel like we're fulfilling our mission, but that's a whole nother podcast to
Yeah.
talk about purpose and mission. But that idea that we feel satisfied, we feel good, we feel aligned, and we also know we develop, this is huge for me, we develop resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Because very often it's these things that we've experienced that keep us feeling like on our back foot, like not strong, not empowered. And when we are tapped in with our inner wisdom and can live from that place, we know how to pivot. We know how to see our truth in any given situation and feel confident to make those decisions. So we, again, just feel like, you know what, no matter what happens, I know I'm going to know how to navigate it, even if
Yeah.
I don't know what's coming down the pike.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And I have to say too, because this is interesting, even though you don't have to be, again, like psychic or something like this to learn how to access and tune into and be more receptive to your records. I want to talk to you about the part of it where it in my experience of it, it feels like you acclimate to that frequency in some way and it does change you. And I
Mhm.
tell people all the time, like in classes when I channel and people say, well, how did that happen? I always attribute it to going into the Akashic Records. So after doing classes with you, I would go in daily. And, you're an incredible example of that. Listen, I have not gone as diligently as you have. I mean, years, anyone listening, okay? For years, this woman has gotten up in the morning. It is part of her morning routine to go on her records and she journals, and it's incredible. But it really does. I mean, my experience was it opened something up in me that I wasn't even necessarily, I wasn't looking for that. I was just exploring the records and having fun doing this. So I wanted to ask you about that because some people initially, maybe you may get impressions, but they may not seem as full bodied. But if you stay consistent and over time, things do seem to open up and become more clear or more full for people.
Right.
So could you talk a bit about your experience with that? And because I just want people to know, so if they do start, they don't think not necessarily the first time you're going to get like pages of information.
Right,
Blow your
right.
mind.
No, that's such a great question. And by the way, for how well we know each other and all these massive conversations that we have, I had no idea that you attribute the channeling
Oh, 100%.
to that. I've never known that about you.
Yes.
So I love that.
Anyone that takes my classes, yes, I've said this for years. I'm like, I went in the Akashic Records every day, and then all of a sudden this started happening. And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I love your question because, the reality is that when we open up the Akashic Records, we would just want to think about it as I'm learning how to have a conversation with my soul, with my spirit, with my higher self, with my highest potential, however you want to feel about that.
Right.
And so, of course, you have the right to do that, right? Of course, we can go in and talk to our inner wisdom, but we haven't learned how to do it yet. So just like, the classic, like if you give a kid a bike, all the potential's there,
Yes.
but it doesn't mean they know how to just, oh, here's my first bike. Now I'm going to ride it perfectly like I will later on, right?
Mhm.
So the working in the Akashic Records, everyone can do it. And I'd be lying if I said it doesn't take practice. It takes practice.
Mhm.
It takes practice. And um, but none of the practice needs to be hard. And that's what I love to do is teach people things that are successful, easy practice things to start when you're beginning.
Yeah.
Because, and what I love about what you say is at the more time we're in there, the more we get to know the energetics of the space, the more we understand how we in particular receive,
Right.
because everyone receives the guidance and the wisdom in different ways. So you need to find your flavor of that.
Right.
And then I also really encourage people, don't start with your biggest, baddest, hardest question. You'll get there. You'll get there. But you want to start with the things that are easier. And again, when I teach, it's like, well, let's start with the easy stuff. Like, I'm going to open my records and just ask for one thing for today.
Yes.
And that's all you need. But the idea is that we want to grow into our capacity. And what I also love about what you said is that the more we're in there, the more we're open up energetically, we're expanding our capacity. So your intuition can grow, your ability to connect with guides grows. So anyone wanting to grow in their just general energetic connection, even if they're doing energy work. I've had lots of people say to me over the years, they've already been energy practitioners, lots of them Reiki practitioners,
Yes.
but that as they worked in their Akash even more and more, they saw their capacity in all the areas of life, including as in their practice with their energy work, expand because we're just holding more of that innate capacity and potential of who we are. And not because it's magic, but it's because we're willing to open up to who we really are.
Right.
And in your case, that meant you're channeling, or in other people's cases, it means that they're better at composing music, or they're an author and they're on fire with their writing, because the Akashic Records really supports every single area of our life, not just our spiritual life, because as we know, I mean, we're working at becoming expanded and integrated in everything. So no matter what you do and how you want to apply it, you could be a chef
Mhm.
and have working in the Akashic Records expand what you're doing there, because you're expanding your innate potential. Did I answer that question?
You did. I love that. Yeah, because I mean, you know, that even gives me a different way of thinking about it and looking at it. Because I mean, I go in for whatever I go in and these things, but to look at it from the different lens of our individual points of focus and how it can help us to expand in a variety of ways. I think that's incredible. So I have to ask you, I want to get to the Akashic Records trilogy because there are other things I want to ask you as well, and even talk about your channeling and just so many things. The time, where does it go? All right. So I want to talk to you about this because, again, we've known each other for a very long time, and I love you dearly. Everybody knows I love you dearly, but it has been incredible. You remind me of, okay, I just have to say this really quick. There's this series or movie or something called Marco Polo on Netflix, and it's supposed to be the story of Marco Polo. I don't know how true or false, whatever, but at some part in his journey, he meets this kung fu master. And a part of the story that always stood out to me is the kung fu master. Of course, he's so, philosophical and he says all of these wonderful things. But there's this part where he talks about letting anything that matters to you become your kung fu. So it's just he's pointing to the repetition of whatever you give your time and attention to again and again, whatever you are diligent about, whatever you show up for, you're going to master that. And
Mm,
so anything really could be your kung fu, right?
it's
And
beautiful.
it's when I think of you, it's like the Akashic Records is your kung fu because you really I, I mean, it's really true. I mean, so many people struggle to stay consistent in their practice, no matter what the practice may be, whether Reiki, meditation, whatever it may be. When I say it is no exaggeration, that I've never seen anyone so committed to. I mean, every day for years, I have known her, and she gets up and she gets her morning drink and goes in her records and journals. I just have to point out because I hope it inspires people to know it is worth it for yourself to be dedicated to what really speaks and resonates with you.
And I do want to say something.
Yeah,
I don't always now go into my Akashic Records every single day. I have ebbs and flows in it, just like everything else,
right.
but it is my rock.
Listen,
And I
it's your
will
kung
say
fu.
this very honestly. What was that?
I said it is your kung fu.
Okay. The, the other piece of that is that I know beyond it, like 100%. I mean, you could say I've tested it because I've had the experience of it. My best days are the days that I go into my Akashic Records first.
Yeah.
And some days what that means is I've opened my Akashic Records, and in that space, I open up to feel the peace and the love, which is incomparable compared to what we experience in our human life because of that unconditional nature. It's like steadfast, like it's just there.
Mhm.
Like we don't have to do anything to receive it. It's just there. I connect with the love and the kindness, and I can feel the expansiveness of it. I connect with my soul guidance team. I might be in there 5 minutes doing that.
Yeah.
And just that, and then I can close my records and get out. It still is my best day.
Yeah.
I don't have to do any big deep work or any exploration. I might not ask any questions. It just, to me, it's like tunes me to that. And so I may have had shitty dreams. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I may have had difficult dreams. I may have had a bad day yesterday, but that's just like setting that dial to that energy, and it sets me off on the right foot. And I say this also because we as humans like to really complicate things. You cannot you can go in the Akashic Records and do all the heavy lifting and work out all your childhood trauma and reframe it and all kinds of things like that. Listen, I've had my childhood trauma. I've been working on it. I continue to work on it. It continues to get better. It holds me back less than it ever has. It's amazing. And I don't have to do that every day. It can
Right.
be super simple because just being in the space is transforming. And so we know that there's the capacity to do the heavy lifting, and there's the capacity to just gently nurture us and get us off in the right space and then go ahead.
Yeah. And I think that's so powerful too, because you're reminding me of how, like, again, like in classes, we'll joke when we do meditations and people say, like, God, why don't I do this every day? It's so simple, right? And
Right.
it is one of those things. I mean, some days you'll have meditations that you're like, wow, did I just go to another dimension? And some days you'll have meditations that are just like, not as exciting necessarily,
Right.
but regardless, like you're showing up for yourself. It is a way
Right.
of acknowledging yourself. It is still a way of helping you to be very much attuned to higher frequency, which then also again helps us to acclimate even in that relationship with our higher self, higher guidance. So, Kung Fu Master? No, I'm just kidding. I want to ask you about the Akashic Records trilogy because you, again, for many years, this has been your point of focus. And so you understand it in such a way because of how much you go in and work with this for yourself, for other people. You've been teaching all of these things, and you have put together a program now called the Akashic Records trilogy. I want to ask you first, why? And what is it? Could you talk a bit about what this Akashic Records trilogy is?
Well, the Akashic Records trilogy is one of what I would call the small workshops I do around the Akashic Records. Yes, I have the foundational class, but what I've found over the years is number one, people who are Akashic Records curious, they may be curious. They don't know that they want to do a deep dive into it, and that makes sense. Like you want to test it out, see how it's working, get a feel for it. Does this feel like it resonates with me? So this is one of several small classes I have. And what the trilogy is it opens you up. It's just a 4-hour class, so super simple. And it's offered live, which I like to do because people like to ask questions and have the support live, online though, live. And then you're introduced to the Akashic Records, what they are, benefits of working in them, and how.
Right.
So I introduced the way that I use called the Akashic Records Nouveau Invocation, which, by the way, came through my work in the Akashic Records. I was involved in another system of the Akashic Records. It was amazing. That's where I started. And after 10 years, suddenly one morning I was in my Akashic Records sitting on my deck in the mountains, like you've been there to that house, and these words started pouring in. So it's an invocation is like a way to get into or really expand into Akashic awareness. And so you learn that. And then in the reason it's called trilogy, it's I'm giving in that 3 experiences, and you're actually doing it at the time, that are easy to access, easy ways to feel successful in getting to know and work in your Akashic Records so that you continue.
Mhm.
Because my experience in the past has been people who came to classes and they'd be super excited about it. And it's like, okay, there's your way in, go for it. And it's like it's like too big.
Yeah.
It's too much. And so I because of my passion and belief and knowingness around what the Akashic Records can do and how it can support people, the reality is that the way it supports is that people stay with it enough in the early stages that they keep going. It's like they're not getting the bike and trying it once and saying, oh, that's it, I fell off, I'm not going to do it anymore. There's something compelling, and what makes it compelling is that you feel like you're learning how to hear your guides,
Right.
and that you're receiving effectively. You're receiving something that's meaningful and can make a difference. And when you see that was meaningful and it makes a difference, that is why I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep trying tomorrow or the next day or the next week. And the more we do it, the more comfortable we are. And so I want those early stages for the people who really want to do this. I want people to feel successful and not give up.
Yeah.
And so I'm teaching three, I'm going to call it techniques. That's not really right. It's just 3 experiences in the Akashic Records that you can do over and over and over again for the rest of your life. I do them all the time,
Right.
but they're going to give you the confidence.
Yeah.
They're going to help you grow into a successful relationship with the Akashic Records that keeps you wanting more.
Keeps you wanting more. It really does. I mean, it definitely was one of those things in my exploration over the years that I am very clear of how it has supported me. You know, there are some things you may learn in practice and you're like, that was interesting. I don't know about it. This is one of the things that I know without a doubt really has supported my path. And what's interesting is you mentioned the invocation, and that is another thing maybe we can talk about another time. You'll come back. But even just the power of word
Mm,
and the intent around that, and taking our time and really feeling into what we're saying, just how powerful that is. I think even the experience of really experiencing the way certain words could help
mm,
you move into this different, like shift into the awareness of this different frequency or this different realm of consciousness that we call the Akash, right? So that even that was an incredible experience because it would be like palpable. You could sense or feel something just shifted around me. And all I did was say, you know, these words. So that's another incredible part. So I just want to tell everyone now, but I'll make sure to put the link and tell you again at the end. You are teaching a class on May 4th, and it's
yes,
online, and it's open to whether you have never been in the records or if you've been in it before and just want to have a different type of experience. So May
absolutely.
4th, mark your calendars for that. And it's at 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern, which is
Right.
3 to 7 Pacific. Now,
And if people can't make it live, if they've registered, they will get the recording. I do encourage you to clear out your schedule to be there live if you can, but people can still join in and they can still follow along if they're watching the recording.
right. And you also have a free Akasha meditation that I'll put a link for down in the show description as well. Now, before you go, I did say there are other parts about your work that I have known for many years that I'm like, other people have to know about this part of you too. So while you are the Akashic Records Kung Fu Master, you also are a channel. And I think for you, that actually came first, right? Like you channeled, no, before the Akashic Records?
Well, you know what? All of this broke open in 2011.
Yeah.
So in January of 2011, I think it was, yeah, I started channeling the High Council of Orion. I had done channeling for myself,
Yes.
but it was just like me in the quiet of my sitting on my bed. I channeled typing into my laptop.
Mm,
It started with some of the angelic realm, and also Melchizedek is my main guide, which is another story unto itself. But it started those messages just for myself. The sort of public part of channeling for me started in January 2011, and it was in February or March that I learned the Akashic Records. And I first started channeling the High Council of Orion. At the end of the year, Ishtara came through with the universal sphere. So 2011 was just a
a big
huge
year.
year for me. I didn't even realize it till I looked back on like all of this happened,
Right.
and it completely changed the trajectory of my life.
Okay, so I want to get into this, and this is interesting because I don't think I've never asked you about this. I mean, I have experienced your channeling and, you know, learned through things that you have channeled, but have to back up and ask because people are so curious about this. One, um, would love to know with channeling for you, what is the experience of it? Because different people channel in different ways. So is it like
Mhm.
trance and you're totally out of the way, or you're a conscious channel? Would love to know that. But then also if you could just tell us a bit about who you do primarily work with channeling and what their teachings tend to be focused on. So like the difference between the High Council of Orion versus like Ishtara. Give us a little bit about that part of your work.
Okay. So first of all, I'm going to circle back just for 1 second with
Yeah.
the Akashic Records. That's channeling also.
Yes.
Everything I do is channeling.
Hmm.
Because in the Akashic Records, you're channeling your soul's wisdom. So it's all channeling. Your intuition is channeling. Like we need to break open the box when people say I'm not channeling. It's like everyone is. We
Yes.
just haven't defined it that way.
Yes.
So, but aside from that, um, I'm a conscious channel, and that is by design because this is my body.
Mhm.
I'm not giving it over. You get to use my vocal cords and my energetic field. So I am a conscious channel. So while I'm channeling, I, as Holly, am still aware and present
Mhm.
to everything that's being said. I may not completely remember it
Right.
fully in the same way everyone else who's listening remembers it, but I'm fully aware. And sometimes I'm even arguing with them while I'm channeling. I'm a little cheeky that way.
Yeah.
So I first started channeling the High Council of Orion. My experience of it, that's a really good question. I don't even know how to describe it. I just know that I'm not me and I'm opening up to allow them to come in. I've been doing it for so long, and the reality is for me as a channel is no one taught me how to do it, not in this lifetime.
Right.
It just started, and I will say, and I've said this many times before, is I don't refer to myself this way now, but I really referred to myself and felt 100% like a reluctant channel because I did not want to do it.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people aspire to do it, and I am thrilled. It is my purpose as a channel here, so I'm very aligned with that now. But initially, it's like, you go talk to someone else. Like, find somebody else to do this. I don't want to do it.
Mhm.
And part of it was the sense of responsibility around it. I had some fear that I had to let go, thinking that if I opened up to anything, I had to open up to everything. And the reality is, we have absolute authority.
Right.
And that's what I teach, because I do teach people how to channel as well
Yes.
outside of the Akashic Records. And like, we have the authority. Just like we have the authority, if somebody wants to walk into our house right now, we have the authority to say, get out. No. And it's that same kind of spiritual authority that we have, that we can be that vessel for the communication without it needing to be something that takes us over in any way that we don't want.
Right.
Now, I channel, again, the High Council of Orion and Ishtara. I can talk about their difference, but everything about me is about self-empowerment, growing into our larger capacity, healing the things that are keeping us from our experience of being fully expressed with our light and our truth and feeling alive and aligned. The beings that I channel, and that includes the angelic realm and others, it's all about that. Why? Because we have to have a vibrational resonance.
Mhm.
So there are people out there channeling all kinds of things. I don't channel that. They're a vibrational match to what they're channeling. I'm a vibrational match to who I channel and the general messages that come through. And it's about supporting our awakening and our ascension. I mean, that's the summary of it. Everything is about maximizing and supporting our awakening into really the beauty, the glory of who we are at our core, living it in our human experience.
Yes.
The difference between the High Council of Orion and Ishtara, the High Council of Orion comes as a collective, and I could tell you they're like 9, but it's like I can kind of get a sense of these 9 light beings, but they're just like seas of light beings behind them. So they are a council. They ascended over 1 million years ago, so they are here as ascension guides, support. I do one-to-one sessions with people with the High Council of Orion as well as the Stara, and they will answer any of your questions. But the focus is related to supporting your individual or our expansion into and through our awakening. So they're like talking to your great grandparents or your great great grandparents, that they have wisdom to share with you, but they're not going to do it for you. We're here to do it for ourselves, and they're here to guide and support. And Ishtar is similar. Ishtar and I go way back to the temples of Isis, where you and I first spent time together, at least as far as I remember. And she and I, what she's explained, so she comes as a singular being, although when I channel her, she says we.
Mm,
But she comes as a singular female being. She's very strong, powerful. She refers to herself as an ancient Egyptian warrior priestess. Her energy when she first came through was extremely powerful, loud. She felt like she was 12 feet high. She did want to be in my body. And I said, absolutely not. You don't get to take over my body, but I'm happy to share your messages. She and I have worked together really for millennia, I guess you would say. Sometimes one of us is embodied and the other's not, like we
mm,
are now. And so it could be flip-flopped. Sometimes we're both non-physical and sometimes we're both physical, but we have this like abiding deep connection of working together.
yeah.
And she brought through something called the universal sphere, which has been incredible, which is a way of working with energetically with the unified field and helping us move through our transitions and support us in embodying our highest potential from the field of infinite possibilities. And she brought through the universal sphere in December of 2011 and still teaching it. I have a membership group where she's channeling and teaching and continuing to do that all the time. So it's just been this incredible journey of opening up to their wisdom, love, so much love and kindness and guidance. They really, whenever I channel Ishtara, the way she welcomes people is, as she'll say, greetings, great beings of light, or great being of light. And the reality is, because I feel her and how she sees the world, if you will, when I'm channeling her, that truly is how she sees us.
Yeah.
And same with the High Council of Orion, they just do it a little differently. But seeing us in that fullness and that expression of who we are. And when I channel also, and this would be true with anyone channeling, I'm sure you would agree with this, it's not just the words. There's always this beautiful energetic transmission that comes with it that helps us more easily align to what the messages are. Like the messages help our cognitive awareness, and then the energetics help our energetic awareness and our energetic embodiment of what they're teaching and sharing and guiding.
Oh, 100%. And it's funny you say when you're like, I'm a little cheeky because in classes too, sometimes I'll literally laugh and go like, why? I don't want to say, okay, just let me say. And then when I say it, it all makes sense and it always comes together. But I always tell people too, like, just be more open to what is coming through. Don't worry about remembering because it is energetically something is shifting within this awareness and what it is that we're doing. But I really wanted to make sure that I got to ask you about that because I think a lot of people don't know that part of your work, and it is an incredible part of the work that you do. And speaking of this, and what kind of, I guess, maybe conjoins the two, like your work with the Akashic realm, as well as your channeling and all of this incredible, just the work that comes through you, there's also another level to the Akashic records that has come through for you.
Yes.
And oh, I feel like this is like breaking news now. But I'm so excited to ask you about this because I'm sure a lot of
Well, it's not
people,
even on my website yet.
yeah. So that's why I'm like, oh, but before we even say the words, part of the reason I think this is so interesting is because in these times, there are a lot of people that feel a resonance to other dimensions and
Mhm.
other places and other planetary connections. And we hear a lot about people speaking now about being starseed, just all of these different ways
Mhm.
of a lot of people feeling this recognition or this awakening of remembrance or working with or connection, right? So when you did mention this the Galactic Akashic Records, I was like, wait a minute. I have to ask you about this. So could you share a little bit about what this is and
Sure.
if it will be something that you will be sharing where people
Yes.
can work with this energy as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I said, it's not even on my website yet. This is something I've been working. I have taught people. I started actually teaching it to clients in Japan
Oh, wow.
first. And this last year, I taught it for the first time in the Western English speaking world. But so I've
Wait,
been
wait, wait.
working with,
Before you go, I mean, I just want to make sure this is clear because I think it was very cool. You actually were invited several times to Japan to teach
yes,
all that
yes,
you teach. Yes, I just want to make
yes.
sure people understand. This wasn't on Zoom. Like she was being invited to go to Japan to teach all that she teaches, you know.
Yeah, and
I just
since
thought it was incredible.
2020, it's all been done online. I haven't been
Yeah.
back there, but before 2020, had gone to Japan a few times. Loved it too. Really fun to be there. But so I've been working with the Galactic Akashic Records for a while. I just haven't brought it forward in my work. It will be forward this year.
Yes.
But here's what it is. Like, first of all, when it first started coming through, I just kind of thought, huh, like what? So I work in when I am developing anything, like I have a new idea about anything, I go into the records, like, tell me what that is. Why is that beneficial? And so, of course, I did that with the Galactic Akashic Records. And so, to what you said, is there many people waking up to this idea that I'm a star seed, or I really resonate with Pleiades or the Syrians or the Arcturians, and I feel a connection, or people are aware that they have a soul aspect that's there. And the reality is that yes, when the Akash is really all that is. It's ether, it's primordial substance. And Earth is not the only place that things have happened and are happening. I know we like to think it is. And listen, in our Earth-based Akashic records, which is really what we've been talking about so far, is our Earth-based Akashic records, we have plenty to work with there. But the reality is, some of us are waking up to the fact that we have been in other planets and dimensions and realities. And that's not that like it's ET phone home. I'm not going to feel comfortable until I get back there. But the idea is that we've learned things. We've grown in those other planets and dimensions and consciousness realities. And we are intentionally here on the planet at this time to bring gifts that we've literally cultivated in those other planets and dimensions and realities. And so it's another level of understanding who we are and why we're here. And I'll just give you a really easy example. A lot of people resonate with the Pleiades. They look at the stars in the sky. They just like they hear Pleiades or Pleiadian, and they're really lit up. And some people are waking up to the fact that they refer to themselves as a star seed. Well, that's not an accident. And so this is overarching. This is a generalization, but a lot of the healers on the planet right now who have visions of love and a better world have spent time in the Pleiades, and they're here bringing those are Pleiadian resonances and energies. Now, of course, no, that's not to say the Arcturians aren't that way, but we all have these flavors. And so a lot of healers, a lot of light workers is a better way to say it, have that Pleiadian resonance. So we can begin to understand ourselves from that perspective also. And what it does is help us anchor and honor, like, oh, this is why I'm here. It's not just because I was a healer in my last human life. I actually am bringing the seed information, the seed energies from these different places, and I am intentionally here to share that. And it comes from that. It helps us even feel just that much more confident in who we are, and share our gifts more easily. So the way it's been shown to me is like, we have the Akashic records that are earth focused, and they're focused on our earth-based lifetimes. Well, that is sitting within a bigger container, if you will. I think of it like those Russian Matryoshka dolls, that
Yes.
sit within each other. The galactic Akashic records still includes our earth-based, and also it gives us access to even more beyond our earth-based lifetime if we're resonant with that.
Yes.
So it's not an either or, like, oh, earth-based or galactic. It's just an expanding to include even more, but
Wow.
it's not leaving anything aside.
Yes. Well, I'm very excited. I always love hearing what's new and coming through for you, but I'm very excited that we're having this conversation because I know there are a lot of people that resonate with all of this. And I don't think I've ever had a conversation interview with anyone who spoke about any of this. So I'm sure there's a lot of people excited right now, and wanting to connect with you. And I am going to, wrap this up and tell everyone how to connect with you. The links for the class on May 4th, of course, will be in the show description. Holly's website is hollyhawkins.love. That link will also be in the show description, as well as how you can access the free Akashic meditation. But I have to ask you this one last question. And
Can
there's
I
so
just
many.
talk about that guided meditation for a
Yes,
second?
please do.
So the intention of it is it's a guided meditation and you listen to it. In the background, the Akashic records are opened. You can hear my voice tiny in the background.
Mm,
But what it's doing is guiding you to open. So you'll be in the Akashic records and you're guided to start vibrationally aligning with your highest potential.
mm,
So it's been developed and guided to allow us to keep resonating and moving energetically ever closer to that pure embodiment of our highest potential in this lifetime. That's what that guided meditation is for.
oh, that's a beautiful and very generous offer. Thank you. Like, I can't wait to listen to it too. But I have to ask you this. This is also something in all the years I've never asked you, but one of these things I think that comes up for all of us. Uh, you, at some point in your life, you were a teacher like a school teacher.
Yes.
And just curious, did you ever imagine that your life path would look anything like this? Like, even back then, did you have any kind of inklings or feelings that this
No,
might be the picture?
never, never. Never. And even when I shifted from being a public school teacher to working with energy, never would I have imagined this. It
Right.
really has been that journey. It has been this evolution. It's been a one yes at a time, and sometimes it's
Yes.
an one no at a time. And it really is that idea of evolution and following the breadcrumbs of the yeses. I trust that for myself, of like, something new might come into my awareness. I trust the yes or no around it.
Mm.
And I'm not always there, but I keep feeling like everything keeps getting better and better,
Yes.
you know, and the better and better really is founded not just in my external experience. It's better and better because I feel better and better.
Right.
But I want to say this because I think a lot of people can relate to this, is, we've all had trauma in one way or another in our early years. It's just part of being human. Sorry, I mean, that's just the truth of it. A lot of my own personal spiritual journey, which started a lot when I was a child, when I took myself to church in a non-church going family. But then starting in my teens, and especially by the time I was around 21, my journey has been to feel comfortable.
Mm.
I There's a lot of life that just hasn't felt comfortable. So I'm constant, and I imagine a lot of people can understand that. It's like I'm constantly seeking because I want to feel good. I want to feel, and literally, can I feel comfortable? happy, solid. And it really has been a journey. So a lot of these things I feel come along because they're here for me.
Right.
And then as I love them and see the value in them, I want to share them. And because I'm naturally a teacher, I want to teach because I also feel like let's all learn how to do this so that we can feel like we can get what we need in any given moment. It's not whether or not we have a budget for another session with somebody. Like, that's great. But also, let's learn how to do this.
Yes.
Let's learn. Like, just like you with teaching Reiki,
Yeah.
let's learn how to do this. Sure, people can come for sessions. That's great. I'm happy to do that.
Right.
But also, let me teach you so
Right.
you can do as much as you can yourself, and then come see me only when you hit a roadblock. Like, I think it's really exciting when I have clients I haven't heard from for a long time. Like, I know they're doing great things, and then maybe I haven't heard from them for a few years. They bring me their hard stuff, but all the rest of the time they know how to navigate their day-to-day stuff. That is victory. That's success.
Yes. Yes. No, I 100% agree. And it reminds me of a couple of things you mentioned when you and I spoke in the background before is a lot of this work of what you loved or love so much is it points to the importance of us feeling into the truth, feeling into the answers for ourselves. And I think that is so very, very important. And I love that that is your point of view. But you also highlight the ways that the Akashic Records and working with these energies help us to align
Mm.
to the next steps in our lives. And you did touch on that a bit, but I just wanted to make sure to put some emphasis around that because it is this constant, like, we can do this one step at a time, aligning to and acclimating to whatever it is we're opening up to. And we don't even necessarily have to know the full picture of what that looks like, but we'll keep experiencing new aspects of ourselves and understanding and seeing if we keep showing up to take one step at a time. So I
Yeah.
am so thankful for everything you shared today. Really, really giving some clarity around the Akashic Records. The other thing about it, though, I just want to point out for people who are curious, I think an important part of, working with teachers, which everyone knows I advocate for good teachers, is that you learn how to develop how to be comfortable with doing this for yourself. Because a lot of times we may get, some information here or there, we may experiment, but it doesn't quite click for us. But when we have resources or people that can really support us in helping us to understand with more clarity, how do I get comfortable with this thing? How do I come to understand more of this? And then, of course, it's up to you to keep going deeper. But I will say I'm thankful for all I've learned from you over the years. And I'm so glad again that you had this conversation with us today.
Oh, it's been absolute joy and pleasure as always, Yolanda. I love chatting with you all the time
Yeah,
and love sharing. And because I think this is how we change the world.
right.
And I know that gets very lofty and esoteric, but we change the world by changing ourselves. And
Mhm.
if we feel more joy, peace, contentment, understanding, acceptance, all of that, that's in our vibrational field. And that means no matter where we go, no matter what we do, no matter what we say, we're transmitting that. And that means that's how the world changes. When I view that if the world was lived by all of us feeling really aligned with that truth, it just changes how we are in our beingness in the world, and it has an opportunity to change. I think we can't underestimate the impact of our becoming aligned with our truth and the contentment and the peace and the love that comes from that.
That is beautiful. All
Yeah.
right. So you want to learn more about Holly and her work, go to hollyhawkins.love. Again, the links for everything, the class on May 4th, the free Akashic Records meditation, all of it is down in the show description, but I'm sure we'll have her back again soon because there's so much more to talk about. Stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for coming today, my love.
My pleasure. Love you so
I
much.
love you too.
Bye.
Okay, beautiful alchemists. I just want to say thank you so much to Holly Hawkins again, my dear, dear friend. I love her so much. Hopefully, you all learned some things about the Akashic Records. And again, if this is new to you, you can learn so much more about it through Holly's work and on her website. So you can visit hollyhawkins.love, Love. She also has provided a free Akashic Records meditation for all of us. The link for that is below. And if you yourself would like to attend the Akashic Records Trilogy class, it takes place on May 4th. And the link to register for the class is below as well. It is a 4-hour class, one day. And she said that you will have access to the recording if you cannot attend live. So thank you so much to Holly. Also want to remind you, if you are someone who wants to learn Reiki, Shoden Okiden levels 1 and 2 with me here in San Diego, registration is open for the Reiki retreat, which will be held in September in San Diego, a 5-day Reiki intensive. You can learn more about that through my website, theenergeticalchemist.com. And don't forget to sign up for my newsletter or download the app for more tools to support you in your energetic alchemy. Thank you so much for being here, my loves. And thank you, Holly, for sharing with us today. Everyone, remember to always journey in love.